Meeting to order at 6:30 on Monday, June 6th, 2022. And I would look for a motion to go into closed session.
I will make the motion to go into closed session.
Thank you. Kate?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Megan. We need a roll call, I believe.
Howery,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Fisher here, Mooney,
Yes.
and Fessler.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I will end the webinar. We'll
Okay.
reopen when you're back in open session. Have a nice closed session.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Okay.
And we can.
I'm going to start the webinar.
Yes.
Okay, starting the webinar now. The webinar started.
Do we need to record that? I should record it.
7:41. Craig, you can feel free to
Okay,
continue
we
and open
are
that.
back in open session. And we can look at some consent agenda items. It contains the minutes from the May 16th, 2022 Board of Education meeting and contains our latest financial transactions. And the agenda has 3 professional staffing recommendations and 4 co-curricular staffing recommendations. Also has 5 personnel items that do not need to be put to a vote. And the list of each of the personnel transaction is listed on your board agenda. I would look for a motion to
There's
accept.
also item 3D, the administrator, supervisor, and director compensation, just to make sure it's included.
Correct. Co-curricular, okay. No vote necessary. All right. I would move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I think
Do we have to add?
we have to amend that.
Yeah,
Can I?
we
can I
have
try?
to amend. the
Yeah,
reading,
yeah.
right?
No, go ahead, give it a try.
Okay, I think this is right. I move to accept the consent agenda as presented, except for item 3D. We would like to accept 3D with changes made by the board in closed session.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, next up is our district administrator's report. Mr. Tarnitzer, please.
All right. A couple things just to highlight that I think are worthy of note. Outstanding graduation, and I think in my time here, correct, I may be wrong, the first time I can recall having all 5 board members present at graduation, I think, maybe?
Last year we did.
Did you? Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
But
But
prior to that, you're probably right, Aaron.
yeah, you think so? Okay.
You're right for the last 10 prior to that.
Yeah.
I know. That was
But
fantastic.
even beyond that, but it's the first time, second time, the full board has been on the stage.
And that might be, yeah,
So-
part of it that is more interesting. So thank you for that. End of school year finished really strong.
Good.
Every building really had just outstanding things to say. The weather made that really pleasant those last few days, so we could get our kids outside. That was really positive. I'm excited to report, I think we're just about through the hiring cycle and feeling really, really positive about that. That's something I just wanted to make sure you knew. One other thing I wanted to note is that you'll see one of our proposed action items coming up is the Natural Circles of Support Memorandum of Agreement. Unfortunately, that wasn't finalized prior to the time we needed to get the materials to you in advance. So that's something that we're not prepared to present to you this evening. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. Other than that, looking forward to our special board session tomorrow night at 6:30. And grateful that Joe Schrader is going to be available to talk strategic planning to us.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Really
thank
happy
you.
to hear
That was
that.
great.
Well, thank you
Do
everyone
that
for
so quickly.
doing that.
Okay, now that would be it for you?
And
Sir?
actually, could I
That's it
make
for
a
me.
note? Could we go back to item number 5?
Yeah,
and
I was
ask if
just
the-
gonna say, I
Okay.
believe I skipped over public comments.
All right. My understanding is that we have not received any written public comments in advance, and at this time, I would invite any members of the public to, if anyone would like to make a public appearance by speaking to the board, please utilize the Q&A portion found at the bottom of your Zoom window. In the Q&A, we would ask that you type your name, address, subject of interest, and whether you have discussed this item prior to the meeting with either a district administrator or President Howery. After submitting the information, I would then transfer you over to speak to the board. I do not see anyone that is registered.
Okay, then we can move along to discussion items. Discussion regarding the professional staff employee handbook. Mr. Superintendent, take it away.
To be. Yes, so I'll just go quickly over, I know you've seen the documents, and just wanted to just verbally explain the process that was used and give you a little bit of background on reviewing this document. So this is actually, the pandemic has many impacts, and one of the things it did was it impacted some of the work that we typically do on the handbook and reviewing it in detail. So there were several things that were really outdated, and that was recognized both by the staff and the administrative team. So the process that we used was to, as an administrative team, came up with some proposed changes, provided staff with an opportunity to provide feedback on those proposed changes via a survey, and ended up, actually, staff organized themselves in building level meetings that administrators were aware of, where they talked about it, reviewed it together, provided the feedback to us, and I think it was 83 responses we received on the survey. Reminder, this is just the professional staff employee handbook, does not the support staff. That's a separate process. So really pleased with the amount of feedback that we received, very thoughtful feedback. And then from that, the administrative team reviewed that feedback. I summarized it in a document that was sent to you, proposed changes, rationale for changes, and then feedback from staff. The administrative team met, reviewed that, had a couple minor changes, which I shared with the Professional Staff Employees Relations Committee. We then met on May 25th. Several of you were there and went through the changes. And one of the processes that we used to expedite the process was to sort of sort things into piles. One pile meaning these are changes recommended that we make right now to the handbook. Here's some changes that we recommend we discuss in greater detail. Take time. These are decisions and things we need to look into, investigate a little bit more. Then we also had some conversations, items to discuss at the PZERC meeting. And then lastly, changes that were in the initial recommended changes that were decided not to pursue. So sorted things into these kind of baskets. And then at that Professional Staff Employees Relations Committee, we had those items that we reviewed. We reviewed all the items, but also those specific for discussion at that meeting, and then sorted those into piles too. Left there feeling really positive about the recommended changes. There was consensus on the changes, and that's what we bring forward to you for discussion and a possible future action item on the proposed changes. I will tell you, just for the most part, the changes that you'll see that are recommended are largely just updated information based on current practice, some adjustments for compensation for certain things such as supervision, chaperone, those kind of things that are really frankly long overdue. And then also just some updated things based on, there was some old language that is no longer applicable.
The handbooks hadn't been looked at for a little while.
Yeah, not in
Not in
detail, right?
detail.
Just a few
Yeah,
things
yeah.
here and there, kind of a hodgepodge, so. So that's kind of just to give you a sense, so, what we, bring for you for discussion are the document that includes the rationale and the feedback and kind of those what's in which pile, and then as well as that document of highlighted changes so that you can see that for your consideration.
Well, I want to compliment you because that was a big concern in the listening sessions that even Craig, the one we went to, I mean, that was a real concern from a lot of staff. And I just felt in just being at that PZERC meeting and then talking with people even afterwards, there was it was like, you just feel the sense of like, oh, this is really nice, and that you weren't rushing things. And I think it just made a lot of sense, and I think it's a real compliment to you.
Thank you.
I would agree. I think that what I really felt from that meeting was that everyone understood the changes that were, the staff understood the changes that were being proposed, and then also, if they didn't, they asked a lot of good questions and provided a lot of really good feedback too, and then felt like it felt to me like everyone was happy with, okay, these are the things we're tabling, these are the things we're moving forward on, and some of the discussion items that were tabled for changing or looking at later, I think ended up being really good. I agree with you, Bruce, that it was, I think it was a process that allowed everyone to be heard and felt good about it, so, yeah, it was good.
We'll keep hammering away at it.
Yeah.
It'll get done.
Yeah, I feel
It's
really.
been a long time.
It has.
You know,
Project.
so,
I
It-
wasn't part of that, but I have some
Yes.
questions.
Yeah,
Is this a good
please.
time to do it?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you bet.
And again, I have to apologize, I wasn't part of that PZERC meeting, and reading through that whole document, make changes, pause, the different categories, the different baskets, so some of these may not be applicable. But we were talking about daily preparation time being 90 minutes per day,
An average, yeah.
an average. One of the things I was thinking of, it's been quite a while since we had the time study task force. It's been years now. That was initiated by K-5 staff because they felt that they were losing some daily prep time.
Okay.
It was being infringed upon by I-teams, M-teams, PLC time, whatever it was, whatever it would be. And I guess I'd like to get a better handle on that, to see where we are, if not K-8, or if not K-5, maybe K-8, if not K-12. Because I can't speak for the secondary level, because I've never been in the secondary level, but I feel pretty confident speaking for the elementary level. I would say their daily prep time is infringed upon way too often for these other responsibilities that they have. But sometime I'd like to propose that we do another time study task force here in the district. Let's see. Reimbursement. Again, I agree with the rate of reimbursement, daily reimbursement, mileage, and all that stuff. But one thing that still is out there, the amount of personal finances that teachers spend on an annual basis to do things in their classroom, to provide things to kids, might be things that for the bulletin board, or things that they give to students of need, might be the reward system. We've always talked about it. I think the average is about $750 per teacher right now. And we keep talking about we don't do anything about it. Imagine if the teachers decided they couldn't afford buying things out of their own pocket anymore. What would the classrooms look like? What impact would it have on kids? Do we not have to do anything about that right now?
Is there no discretionary budget out there
We
for
do have-
teachers
I don't
to
know.
spend on supplies and such that may fall outside of their, budgeted equipment or resources?
Yeah, we, K-8 have a very generous PTO that gives us discretionary funds to use. And there may be sometimes where maybe it's just communicating to staff and a process for accessing those funds.
Yeah, and we did it the PTO, during my years of experience here, the PTO did that 1 or 2 years. They gave every teacher $100, just spend however they see fit. But that's a far cry from what they usually put out of their own pocket. And each team gets their team budgets also. So as a team, they usually can decide how to do it. But again, they usually buy materials and supplies that the whole team can use. And it deals typically with the curriculum. So to
Do you
go
think
back
they
with what
don't
you're
know
saying-
the process to be reimbursed for these kinds of things? It sounds like we have,
I don't think we have a process for some of the things that teachers put out their own money for. Because it wouldn't meet whatever criteria we have out there. If we have criteria, I don't know if we do or not.
I would think discretionary funds are just that.
I don't know if we have
You know,
discretionary
anything that
funds.
they
so.
see fit.
I never knew anything like this.
No?
I'd never heard of this.
Okay. All right.
As a high school teacher, did you,
No,
Okay.
it never even occurred to me.
yeah, at the K-5 level, it occurs to a lot of
Is
staff.
there anything out there, Jeff, that
Yeah.
you're aware of?
As far as this, to be honest, Tom, this is kind of the first time I'm hearing that we're still having staff not using PTO funds or their district budget. When we went from purchase orders to credit cards, where they could even check out the credit card, we saw a lot of more personalized spending, but we never, unless a principal brought to our attention that
Yeah.
there was unmet needs,
Might be good just
so it
to
might
ask
be
the staff
worth
sometimes.
surveying staff.
Yeah,
And
I think that's a good, or a focus group or something.
One comment quick, and then we'll go to Mr. Finstead. I will tell you, I can speak for my building. The middle school, it is common for teachers to underspend their building budget, in my experience. So I don't know, maybe it is a difference between K-5, but,
Yeah.
maybe Jeff has some insight from the high school perspective.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that every department in our school has a very substantial budget. They're in complete control of how it gets spent. So really, it's all discretionary in theory. And I'm looking through my budget up front now, and I would say our departments typically underspend as well. Really, money is typically not an issue. And also, if they get to the point where they need something else, I don't say no very often. And so they can come to my office too, and I have access to my budget as well. So they have discretion to spend the money the way they want to.
Thanks, Jeff. Tom?
I think we should just ask the staff sometime.
Yeah.
That's how I.
And it could be a communication issue, yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks very much.
And then a couple other things. It just seems, when taking a look at the revised handbook, seems like there's going to be less teacher empowerment, less board empowerment, but more council empowerment. And as a board, I think we might just want to be aware of that. And I know some of the rationale why the board doesn't want to be involved with that. But again, I think that we should just be aware of some of the things that we used to do that we no longer will be doing or having input or decisions on. So-
Are there any specifics that?
No, but I could go through here for next time.
Yeah,
go
because if
through.
there are
Yeah.
things, and that'll be important, right?
Yeah.
If there's some things that you feel
Yeah.
like, some of them are logical, and that may not be
Yeah.
part of that. And some of them, maybe something that the board says, actually, we do want to continue to be involved in that.
I would think so.
Yep.
So,
That'd be great.
Yeah, specifics would be helpful.
okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
Oh, one more.
Yeah.
Aaron, what's the timeline then for things that have not been, things that are
Yeah,
put on
great question.
pause? when will we seek resolution to those things?
Yeah, so we're gonna meet together, with PZERC, I think we said in August, does that sound right?
Okay,
To prioritize tasks, because, we only have so much capacity.
right.
And some of them are longer-term things. So, the
Definitely.
timeline may depend upon the issue and what people feel as more of a priority moving forward.
The PRESERVE committee has actually become significantly more active than when PRESERVE started. I think we were meeting twice a year, weren't we?
Wow.
And that's pretty common in most districts.
I believe,
To meet
and I think we're
twice a
down
year.
to once a quarter, anyway.
I
If
think a
not-
lot of it is, just as you said, though, we haven't visited this.
Right.
And we are. And I think
Yep.
once a lot of these things are addressed, I don't think there'll be that same kind of urgency.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Then we can move on to, we're gonna table our discussion and possible action on the MOU with Natural Circles of Support to a later meeting when all materials have been received by our folks here in the district. So we can move on to action on the second reading and adoption of policy 5200.01, full-time student. Any discussion? Then I would look for a motion to approve the second reading of that policy.
Before you do that, Craig, Aaron, is there a chance that this individual could ever have the opportunity to come back to the district? Would they have to wait a year?
I think you're on to the next agenda.
Am I? Have I missed
Yeah.
it? Sorry.
This is for the full-time student for.
Oh, sorry.
Just the
Sorry,
def-
this is Jeff.
Yeah, the definition of a
Sorry,
full-time
forgive me.
student.
Thank you for the foreshadowing.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Segue.
We'll be better prepared for the next item now.
Yeah, sorry.
It looks to me like the only change is the,
The credits?
yeah, moving 7 to 6. Otherwise, everything's remained the same. I would look for a motion.
Well, okay.
No, we can have discussion.
I would like to just
Yeah.
ask, is this something that, because I have certain reservations about it. I mean, there's some things I think it really makes sense, but there is a part of me feel like, I don't know, I guess I believe in the idea of kind of self-fulfilling, or if you have high expectations, you're gonna get results. And I am always concerned, particularly in this time of, where we have a mental health crisis. I'm not sure it's good to give kids more free time. I don't know if that's necessary to their advantage. Now, I understand that there are some kids it would make sense to give them that they could be involved with a job or they're doing other things. But at the same time, I'm wondering, is this something that we could kind of look at a year from now and see how we felt it worked? And I think that's what I was gonna ask you, Jeff. Is
Yeah,
it
we would
something
always
can-
review.
Yeah.
I have no problem, yeah, we would review how it goes. I will say to you, for the most part, this is a job-related request. Or we do have a situation where students have exhausted their choices, and often, sometimes, you get a student to go into a class that they don't want to be in, and sometimes that's not a good fit either. I will also say to you that our counselors do a pretty good job of, when a student requests this, to encourage and really look through it. It isn't just a blanket, okay, that's fine. They will do everything they can to make sure we meet those students' needs and encourage them to push themselves as well.
Well, the argument I would make against that would be that I'm not sure a kid who's 17 or 18 years of age necessarily knows. I know they might think they know what they want to go into, but I would argue that probably all of us ourselves at some point said, wow, I never would have dreamt. Or I took a class that at the time, like, why am I doing this? And it turns out in the end, I was really glad that I did that.
It's
So
interesting to hear, just remember, it's been a pretty big push for having a student voice from this board and asking the students to have a voice of their education. This is an opportunity for them to do that. And again, I don't think you're gonna have the mass exodus. And we'd look at it again, but I would like to empower our students to make, and families, to make decisions for themselves.
But Jeff, do you think it would be more appropriate if the high school developed some guidelines, though, that parents could use as they help their students make this decision? For example, they've run out of all the coursework, they're in the apprenticeship program or whatever it is, or they have to work to support the family. Have you ever considered developing any type of criteria that would make a good case for one student taking 6 credits versus 7 credits their senior year?
I guess I have faith in our student services department. That's what they already are doing.
So I think a lot of this makes sense, you know, especially if they're doing the Start College Now program or youth apprenticeship, some of those things. Now, item C here, where it's modified program authorized for medical, emotional, social, or disciplinary reasons. I guess my question would be more on the emotional, social side, and who makes those decisions, and how do you ensure that they're still getting what they need from the school district and engaging in the district? Because what I worry about with some of those kids is that they self-isolate more if they're not in school.
I would, the same response, the student services group, our counselors are working very closely. If that becomes a necessity, they're working with families already and supporting that. It's probably a conversation that family and our counselors have already had, which is why they would go to that. The anxiety levels of our seniors with taking AP classes, high-level classes, and college applications, there's a high level of stress. And so our counselors are talking to parents when they make this decision.
And I didn't hear the counselors have any reservations 2 weeks ago when this was a topic of discussion. Is that correct?
Say it again?
When we were discussing this 2 weeks ago, the counselors didn't have any reservations about moving forward with this.
They wanted to do this a while ago. So yeah, there's no reservations on their part. They brought it to me again.
It sounds like a lot of the county, the
Yeah.
surrounding districts are already
Yeah,
doing
they've
it.
already done it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm doing it, I think.
I just would like to just make sure that a year from now, we just revisit it and say, how did it work? I just think we need to do that.
Yeah, and then maybe you could give us a breakout, or the counselors could, Jeff, of who took advantage of the program and kind of the reason behind, like, were they in the youth apprenticeship program, or was it medical, or?
Absolutely, we can do that. That's not a problem.
It would be an easy thing to touch base with the senior exit interviews too.
Yeah.
But the senior exit interviews are optional, is that correct, or are they mandatory?
They'll be back next year.
Yeah, they were optional this year.
Okay.
And then mandatory
Okay.
in future years.
Glad to hear that.
So if that's the case, I'll move to approve the recommended changes to policy number 5200.01, full-time students.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Tom. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. So we'll move on to action on denial of student open enrollment status. The description: at this time, we recommend the denial of one IMMS student's open enrollment status for the 22-23 school year due to habitual truancy during second semester of the 21-22 school year. 2009 Wisconsin Act 304 states that a non-resident school board may notify the parent of a habitual truant that the pupil may not attend the non-resident school district in the following semester or school year. Please reference the attached recommendation memo, and if you'd like, I could read that as well, unless you've all read it.
I don't think we can read that in open session.
I could read it without the names and that sort of thing too, if you want, but if you've read it,
Yeah.
let's talk about it. Any thoughts?
Well, this was the question. I'm sorry, I was considering that.
Here we go. Now we're ready.
Full-time student.
Now
but
we're ready.
Does that individual have an opportunity to come back? Or is this that was it? That was your opportunity to be in this district as open enrolled?
My understanding is that they could apply again, but they'd be subject to the,
Yeah,
to the requirements and the class limits. Is that your understanding as well, Jeff? Do you have any insight on that?
No, they could reapply.
They could.
Yeah.
Because they are counted in this year's, so it would be about space.
okay.
It'd be about meeting whatever reasons would be needed to have that person
Mhm.
be back.
You know, just as someone that's expelled has the right to
Okay.
reapply,
That's what I was,
chances are,
yeah, I understand.
you know, under that set of circumstances, acceptance probably,
Yeah,
but everybody can change.
that's right. And I think this young individual.
It's
I think
about
at some point-
opportunities.
Yeah, I think at some point we'll be realizing that McFarland is a pretty special place, and I'm sure we.
And it happens.
Yeah.
Can I just get clarification? So it says that the student had 7 days with at least one unexcused absence. So does that mean that 6 of them were excused absences and then 1 was unexcused in the semester? Because it says that they had 7 days with at least one unexcused absence during the school semester.
I think that means he cut a class or refused to participate in a class during that day. He may not have been truant for the whole day,
Part or
but was
all
truant
of
for
it.
Part of a day 7 times?
Correct. So the
Okay.
way the truancy works is that it doesn't have to be a whole day. It's
Okay.
part of a day.
I guess it's really disappointing. Bruce was just referring to McFarland. We are a really good system. I mean, the resources we have in our district are remarkable. And here, and I'll say, we've been unable to help support this kid somehow. And I know there's rules and regulations, and I know there's frustration points and all that, but still, it's disappointing that we haven't been able to reach this kid up to this point. And I'll say the same with our WEVA kids that we send back to their home districts, you know? Because if anyone can reach these kids, we should be able to do it. So maybe if the student turns around and comes back, we'll give it a second try.
Well, I can say it's certainly not due to a lack of effort.
No, I'm sure.
Knowing the
All of the-
situation.
I'm-
all of the actions that were taken are listed in the
Yeah,
in the
I understand
document.
yeah.
But the question is, was it enough? I mean,
Ooh,
did we go where the student was? I don't know.
Or
do you
maybe
mean
another way.
physically, or
Pardon me?
do you mean physically?
Well, physically, emotionally, whatever.
Yeah, and maybe it's, I think it takes 2 to tango, and I think for whatever reason, that individual wasn't ready for
And there might be-
the outreach on our part,
Yeah.
and kids grow up, I mean, that's it.
Well, one of the things to think about, with open enrollment status is that sometimes living a distance from school is a barrier in and of
Mhm.
itself.
You got it.
Yep.
That certainly exacerbates, certain issues.
Yeah, you've got a geographical separation from your classmates, and I suppose, given the state of mental health these days, you're gonna find some that are tough to deal with. It certainly appears to me that, boy, we put forth a heck of an effort,
Yes.
over a pretty good period of time, just to try to work something out.
Right. At some
Uh,
point.
It's not dissimilar from our expulsion process where, before it ever comes to that, there's a pre-expulsion contract that you can put together and sign to avoid the expulsion hearing.
I guess it's just how I feel.
Yeah, no, and
So-
I think we all have that part of our persona, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here on
You're
the
right.
board.
You're right.
That we want to make every kid comfortable and welcome and
Successful.
successful. And you bump into the, realism versus optimism, and I think we do as great a job as we can with as many kids as we possibly can. And every now and again, unfortunately, somebody's gonna fall through the cracks. And it's just not gonna be a fit, and again, unfortunately, this is the second district where it doesn't appear as though the young person is gonna have a fit. So it's sad.
Again, it's,
It
my
is.
comment is in no
Yeah.
way to say
Yeah.
we didn't do everything we could. My question is, could we have done
Yeah.
more? But
Yeah, I appreciate your comments. I think that's important. And so maybe what we take from this, because it is very clear, there was a lot of effort made
Mhm.
to help this student. So maybe the opportunity is to review what's in our control to see if there was more opportunity
Mhm.
to help. But, yeah.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to accept the recommendation of,
I'll make that motion.
okay,
I move to deny the open enrollment status of the designated Indian Mound Middle School student based upon his habitual truancy.
do I have a second?
I can second that.
Megan, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And at this point, I think we're about to, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Great job tonight, everyone, and thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.
That's right. 6:30.
6:30. Come on.
Do you though? Do you?